descendants of Cain, who violently slayed Abel.
To see if I could find Hamas in the Bible, and I found this. Genesis 6:11, it says, "Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence." Now, keep going with me. Pay attention here. Now, when I go to Genesis 6:11 and I look at what those words mean in the original Hebrew, look at the word for violence. Look at this. Ready? Hamas.
All praises and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Ha Ruka Kudash. Double honors unto our apostle elders, which rule great millstone well, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel. May you endure unto the end. Shalom wa abababal. So this devil here is trying to say that Hamas, it was Cain's descendant, all right, which he's mistranslating the words. He's a false prophet, all right. When you get the word Hamas in there, it's for the word violence, all right. And violence was allowed to prosper on the earth because of the wicked, okay. So let's go to Genesis 6, and it says here in verse, which he was reading out of.
So again, Hebrew, look at the word for violence. Now, keep going with me. Pay attention here. Now, when I go to Genesis 6:11 and I...
So he said Genesis 6:11. All right, it says the earth also was corrupt before Elohim, and the earth was filled with violence, right? So that word violence there, which is a Hebrew word Hamas, and the Arabs, they speak Arabic, which is a form of Hebrew. All right, it says violence, wrong, cruelty, injustice, all right, which these Arabs are violent people, right? It tells you that in right here, that Hagar, right here, the son of Hagar, Genesis 16, verse 8, and he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence comest thou, and whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai, which Sarai, her name was changed to Sarah, and she was beating the shit out of this Arab because she got pregnant by Abraham and thought she was better than Sarah. And Sarah, being an Israelite woman, right, while she was an Assyrian, right, but then the Lord brought Israel out through the son, which is Isaac, which was the son of Abraham and Sarai, which her name was changed to Sarah, and Abram, his name was changed to Abraham. But he had a son with the woman that was a slave, Hagar, and his name was Ishmael. All right, it says, and the angel, which they pushed Hagar out of the camp, so she was in the wilderness, and the angel of Yahweh said unto her, return to thy mistress, and submit thyself under her hands. And the angel of Yahweh said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, which Ishmael he increased, that it shall not be numbered for multitude, because there's so many Arabs, right? Which they're in bed with Esau. It tells you that in Psalms 83. It says, and the angel of Yahweh said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shall call his name Ishmael. Right? Ishmael, his name Ishmael, which is, I believe it's Shema, Yahweh heard your cry. Let me see. Ishmael. God will hear. So he heard Hagar, right? And it says, because Yahweh hath heard thy affliction, because she was kicked out into the wilderness, her and her son Ishmael, because she was offending Sarah, Abraham's wife. It says, and he will be a wild man. That's why they take that name Hamas. All right? His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of Yahweh that spake unto her, Thou power seeth me. For she said, Have I also here looked after me? Have I also here looked after him that seeth me? Which this is talking about the Arab's mother, Hagar, being told about her son's prophecy by an angel, all right? That he would be a wild man. That's why he does what he does, all right? He's a wild man. And he's pretty much, every hand is against him of every man, all right? And he's against everyone too, all right? Here in the CJB version, it says in Genesis 16:12, he will be a wild donkey of a man, meaning he's a jackass. All right, that's why he'll blow himself up. That's why he'll blow people up, right? He's a jackass. The Arabs are. But they're not the descendants of Cain. All right, the descendants of Cain are the Edomites, the so-called Caucasians. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to the scripture in Genesis, and then let's go ahead and go into 5. Let's see. Right here. So it says in Genesis 4, verse 13, this is after Cain killed his brother because he was rejected. Cain was rejected and he was offended at his brother Abel's righteousness. And Cain said unto Yahweh, my punishment is greater than I can bear. And what is the punishment that Cain got for killing his brother? It says right here, verse 9, and Yahweh said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? So he's doing that same attitude with the Israelites. Where's the Israelites? He says, oh, they dead, they disappeared, whatever, right? So that's the same attitude as these Edomites today, the so-called Caucasians. It says, and he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. So Esau's been a murderer. He was actually the first murderer. And this is evident of what's going on in the Middle East today. All right, even though you got a wild jackass of a man, the Ishmaelites, the Arabs, Esau's more of a violent man than the Arabs. He is called the wicked, the so-called white man, which is the descendants of Cain. And Cain's punishment was he lost his pigment. All right, and when his people died and came back through reincarnation, he came back as Esau, which that's why he got that name Esau, which means wasted away, because he lost that color of his skin back in the time when he was Cain. And when he came back into the flesh, reincarnation, he came back as, it really is describing a red, weak baby. Okay, he looked like a premature baby. It was abnormal because there wasn't a bunch of white people and they're not even white, they're red, but they call themselves white. But there wasn't a bunch of so-called Caucasians walking around back then. Everybody was dark-skinned. And it's an easy history, a search of history, the Chinese were so-called black people. The Indians were so-called black people. The Africans were so-called black people. Even the Native American Indians were so-called black, right? So the so-called Caucasian, where did they descend from? It was Cain. Cain killed his brother Abel, and the Lord punished him by taking his color from him. It says, and now art thou cursed. That's that curse. That's why they got that pale skin. From the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. So what happens is when someone dies, the flesh goes to the earth, but the spirit goes back to the Father who made it. And Esau don't believe in spirits because he's a carnal man. He's wicked. But what happens is when the spirits go back to the Father and the Son who created them, they cry to the Lord, whether they're, the Israelites, like all these Hawaiians that just perished. They're, Japheth, and you got some Israelites in there, some even Edomites, but they go back to the Lord and they cry to him, what happened? How did they die? What happened? So that's what it's explaining. It says, when thou tillest the ground, I'll start at verse 11. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. And this is why they need immigrants to work the fields. And then they need all these chemicals and shit. It's because the earth rejects Esau, the so-called white man. All right, that's why he needs all this extra help to garden, to farm, is because they're cursed. It says a fugitive, which that's why they call themselves white today. Their actually biblical name is Esau, Edom. All right, Esau as an individual, Edom as a nation. Their forefather was Esau. It says, and a vagabond. A vagabond means they're traveling all over the world. All right, all over in everybody's business. It says, shall thou be in the earth? And Cain, which his name Cain means pretty much a dagger, a weapon, that's what he used to kill his brother. And Cain said unto Yahweh, my punishment is greater than I can bear. And what was Esau given as a blessing? It was the sword, right? Which, what did he use that sword to do? Kill his brother Jacob. It says, behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. That's why they're culture thieves. They have no culture. The Lord hates them, and he destroys their heritage. All right? It says, and it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And that's what time it's coming into again. It was like this in the past. When everybody come around an Edomite, you'd put his ass to death. And that's where it's going, all right? Because it's going to come out more and more that this is the devil. The so-called white man is the red devil the Bible speaks of. There's nothing good inside that so-called white man. There's nothing good that the so-called white man ever done but fulfill the will of Yahweh as the wicked. All right? Him doing what the Lord, created him to do, which is be a devil. So he does good by doing the will of the Lord. But otherwise than that, he's the wicked. His actions are wicked. His mindset is wicked. And the Lord hates him. And he created him to destroy him. All right? So the Lord is going to use him to punish the earth. That's why he has such technology as nuclear weapons. But then after that, he's going to eliminate this Edomite because there's no need for the devil. All right? It says, and it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And it'd be easy to identify you back then because you were, lacking skin color while everybody else was dark. It says, and Yahweh said unto him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. Look at Gaza and look at Israel. They supposedly killed only a couple hundred, and now look at what happened to Gaza. That shows you this on those Edomites over there. If you kill an Edomite, right, they'll come and kill, multiple more of you. That's why you can't go to war with this devil and his sword. All right? It says, and Yahweh set a mark upon Cain. This is that skin color. Lest any finding him should kill him. All right? So let's go into this mark. Let's see what it says. A mark.
Strong's H 226. Oath. Oath.
See, an oath, but it says a sign, signal, a distinguishing mark, a banner, remembrance, malicious, miraculous sign, omen, warning, right? Which, what was it? He was dark, and the Lord took his skin color, took his melanin away. All right? It says, and Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. It says, and Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, which this is not the Enoch that was translated. And he builded a city and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. Which, once again, why does he build the city? Why does he need the city? Because he's cursed from the earth. The earth doesn't give him the minerals and things he needs without having slaves to produce it. All right? That's why he needs the immigrants to work the field. That's why he needs all these people to serve him, because he's really a cursed people. The so-called Caucasians are cursed, all right? So then the flood comes, right? And Cain's people die. But then they come back to who? To Shem, as the twin brother of Jacob. And now Jacob, his name was changed to Israel, which he was a so-called black man. And Esau came out red, like a so-called Caucasian. And he was the twin brother, though he looked different. He looked like an albino to Jacob. Now, this is Genesis 25, verse... Right here, this is dealing with Isaac and his sons. It says, verse 21, and Isaac entreated Yahweh for his wife, because she was barren, and Yahweh was entreated of him, and Rebekah was his wife conceived. And the sons struggled together within her, so she had twins, and they were both males. And she said, if it be so, why am I this? And she went to inquire of Yahweh. And Yahweh said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other. Talking about the Israelite is stronger than the Edomite. The Israelite are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. And the Edomite are the so-called Caucasians, the descendants of Cain, through Esau, which Cain came back in reincarnation through procreation, and he was born with the mark of Cain, which is that skin color that they have today. I guess it changed it. But, so-called Caucasian, that's the color that Edom was born with, Esau. It says, and the one people shall be stronger than the other. That's why the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian could endure slavery, could endure the genocide, and we still survive. And the elder shall serve the younger. The elder was Esau, and this prophecy as it came to pass because we're in slavery under Esau. But after Esau, then they will be enslaved under us, starting with Esau. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau.
Nawokocha, 38,
just like
gave
this.
birth
This
to her
is what
twins
happened.
in 2016. One black baby boy, Kamsi, and a baby girl, Kachi, who has pale white skin due to suffering from albinism.
There you go. This is exactly what happened with Jacob, which his name was changed to Israel. All right. And his brother Esau, which Esau's name, he had the name Edom because he ate blood. All right. And they even said there's a scientific fact that these albino, the so-called Caucasians, they actually eat bloody meat, which it's in the scriptures. But they said that there's nutrients in there that they receive through eating the bloody meat. And it's because they don't get the nutrients through the skin from the sun. Just like a so-called black or a so-called Hispanic or a so-called Native American Indian baby would get. All right? So once again, in Genesis 25, and the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau, which is Aishawa, which means he's wasted away. He looked like a dead baby. It says, and after that came his brother out, which his brother came out looking like this. So they didn't say nothing because he looked normal compared to everybody else on the earth. Esau, it was documented, he looked different. It says, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, right, because they were fighting in the womb. And his name was called Jacob. And Isaac, the father of Esau and Jacob, was 80 years old when she bare them. All right. Now, it tells you Esau's behavior. All right. It says, Genesis 25, verse, let's see. We just keep reading through verse 27. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter. So, now when you go into hunter magazines, whose image is all over this magazine? So-called Caucasians, which they're really red. They're not white. Right? Who's the hunter? The so-called Caucasian. You see? You see? See? They're not white. They're red. Why haven't I came across a so-called black man in a hunter's magazine yet? Because this act or personality characteristic tributes go to Esau. All right? When the so-called black man, he's known as a man that likes to be at home. You know, likes to be at home drinking with his woman, eating good food. When Esau, he's that fugitive, he's that vagabond, so he's always out and about seeing who he may devour. It says, a cunning hunter a man of the field. And Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents, like the Gadites, right? Plains and pretty much just dwelling in tents, a simple man. It says, and Isaac loved Esau because he did eat of his venison, but Rebekah loved Jacob. And Jacob sought pottage, and Esau came from the field. And who's always doing the cooking? It's the Jake, right? You go into, let me show you.
This is a great opportunity for these people to find entry-level employment and work their way into better jobs as cooks and chefs. Kitchen work is a grind in even the most prestigious restaurants, but most Latinos have a great work ethic.
See, the Latinos are known for working in the kitchen. It's even in the internet. Why are there so many Latino cooks at restaurants in the U.S.? Because the Latinos, they go back to Jacob, whose name was Israel. All right, it is Israel, and they are the sons of the so-called, brothers to the so-called American Negro. The Israelites are the so-called American Negroes, the so-called Latinos, and the Native American Indians of North America, Central America, South America, and the Caribbeans. The Caucasians are the enemy to the Israelites. They're the Edomites. The so-called Caucasians are the wicked. All right? It says, and Esau came from the field. He didn't capture nothing. It says, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, feed me, I pray thee, with that red pottage. And it was red because it wasn't done. They like to eat bloody meat. For I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom. When you go into Edom, all right, let's just see if they got it correct in here. Look, Edomite, Idumean, descendant of Esau. All right, and as you can see, it says red. 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 The Idumean is red. All right.
They contain harmful bacteria.
So who
Thorough
eats
cooking is
bloody
important
meat?
to kill any bacteria and
Who is
viruses
known
that may
for
be present in the
eating
food.
red bloody meat? Who is known for eating red bloody meat? The so-called Caucasian, right? They're known for eating red bloody meat. All right? These are the descendants of Esau, and they are the descendants of Cain, which killed their brother with the sword. All right? They still do this till today. That's why what's going on in Israel, all right, it shows who that sword been blessed to, who's been using the sword like a master murderer is Esau. All right, they are that red devil the Bible speaks of, and they eat red bloody meat just like their forefather Esau, which his name was changed to Edom, which they were also known as the Idumeans when they were Greeks. They were also the Romans, and today they're the so-called Caucasians. It says, and Jacob said, sell me this day thy birthright. And Esau said, behold, I am at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do me? Because he was the firstborn. And Jacob said, swear to me this day. And he sware unto him, and he sold his birthright unto Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils, and he did eat and drink and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright, right? Because they don't care about the Lord. They're atheists, and you could even look that up. All right, it says whites who are atheists, right? Most so-called Caucasians, right? If they go back to Esau, they are atheists because they don't believe in the Lord. They don't care about anything that pertains to the Lord. All right? So the Caucasians are usually the ones that are atheists. All right. Now I ain't saying that you ain't gonna have a so-called black man that's an atheist, but for the most part, being an atheist is a white thing, so-called white. It said, isn't atheism a white thing? Why would they have this what would you call it? It's called a stereotype. Salakia. I couldn't think of the name. Stereotype. All right. One of the Caucasian stereotypes is that they don't believe in God, and that's because they are the Edomites. It says, despite a general shift, and this is from the National Library of Medicine, despite a general shift towards secularity, very few people of color in the United States identify as atheists, because the most part they believe in God because they're Israelites, and even these heathen have some form of fear of a God. Esau, he's just a straight up atheist. He don't believe in God, right? So that's a stereotype of the so-called white man. All right, being an atheist. All right, so it says that Esau didn't care about his birthright because he don't care. All right, today he shows that I don't care attitude by saying he's an atheist. All right, it says in Genesis 27. All right, we're not dealing with Jacob today, but let's deal with Esau. All right, so Esau, he was going to be blessed, but it went a different way because the Lord hates Esau and he gave that blessing to Jacob, which it was all preordained. All right, I don't want to ruffle no feathers. It was all preordained. All right, let me point that out. But the point is that Esau went through these acts and they're written for our sake so that we could identify Esau. All right, and as you can see, it's easy to see who the descendants of Cain are, which came back as Esau and are the nation of Edom, the so-called Caucasians. It says in Genesis 27 verse 18, and he came unto his father and said, my father. And he said, here am I. Who art thou, my son? Because he already gave the blessing to his brother Jacob. All right, because Jacob went in there and got it before Esau came back with the hunt, so that he could get it, just as the Lord has promised to his mother through prophecy that Jacob was the one that would receive the blessing. But you also got to remember that he sold the birthright to Jacob. Esau did, because he didn't give a shit about the birthright. So right here, even in this wicked ass society, they have a thing called a verbal contract. It says, what is a verbal contract? When two or more parties, which you had Jacob and Esau, come to an agreement. And the agreement was he would give him that bloody meat, that pottage that was uncooked, for the blessing of being firstborn. It says, when two or more parties come to an agreement without any written documentation, which what we have is the scriptures as the written documentation, but this was done verbally between our forefathers. It says they create a verbal contract. A verbal contract is also known as a verbal agreement, oral contract. Now you got to remember, Cain didn't care about his birthright either, just like Esau didn't. All right, let's go back to Genesis 4. And it says right here, in Genesis 4 verse 5, but unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect. So the Lord didn't respect Cain's offering because it was incorrect. Because Cain didn't give a shit, right? It says, I'll start at verse 1, Cain and Abel. It's titled right there. But in verse 1, Genesis 4 verse 1, and Adam, which you got to remember, Adam was verbally taught the law of sacrifice, which he taught Cain and Abel, which this is why Abel would have sacrificed an animal, but Cain, being the, spirit of Esau, didn't give a shit. He didn't do what was correct. It says, knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bare Cain. So Cain is I believe he's the firstborn, and said, I have gotten a man from Yahweh, and she again bare his brother Abel. So just like Esau and Jacob, Esau was born first, then Jacob. And Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So Jacob was a shepherd, Esau was a farmer. And in process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahweh. But Yahweh didn't want the fruit. He wanted the blood, the life, which is in the blood, being sacrificed by the animals, which they burned. And it was pretty much, to please the Lord, because he wanted to put man to death all the way around. But it was his way of, giving us time. And then eventually Yahweh Shai took that place of that ultimate sacrifice, that lamb. All right. And now we're in grace under Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. It says, and in process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahweh. And Abel he also brought of the firstlings of his flock, and of the fat thereof. And Yahweh had respect unto Abel, because he did it correctly, and to his offering. But unto Cain, which today is the so-called white man, right? But unto Cain and to his offering, he had no respect. And this is why the Lord says he hates Esau. He hated Cain because he was the spirit of Esau. And Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. He said, I'm an atheist anyway. It says, and Yahweh said unto Cain, why art thou wroth? And why is thy countenance fallen? If thou dost well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou dost not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, which Jake, right? Jake's desire today is to be with the so-called white man, and thou shalt rule over him, which were in slavery under the so-called white man, right? And then that's what happened, is Cain killed his brother because the Lord loved Jacob and hated Esau. Romans 9, and I'll start at 11. It says, for the sons, Esau and Jacob, being not yet born, neither having done any good or evil, that the purpose of Yahweh through his son Yahushua according to election might stand, not of works, but of him that calleth. So the Lord did this so he could prove, hey, it's up to me to choose who I love. It ain't up to you. And even if it's all up to the Lord. There's no free will. All right. It says, it was said unto her, the mother of Esau and Jacob, the wife of Isaac, the elder shall serve the younger, which is the prophecy still hasn't came to pass. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. And Esau hates the Lord because he's hated, right? It says, what shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with Yahweh and his son Yahushai? Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai forbid. No, it's not. He's wicked, right? And he deserves to be destroyed. It says in verse 22, Romans 9, verse 22, what if Yahweh, through his son Yahushai, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction, which these so-called Caucasians, they don't really get no judgment, like other, starting with Israel or even these other heathen. They're not in trouble like us because they're the wicked and they're ruling the world right now. They're Esau, and they're in that birthright that was promised to Esau. The nation is Edom. All right? It says, and that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy. So he let Israel go down very low so that he could show mercy. And he let Edom go high so he could show his power by throwing them down into slavery, fitted for destruction. It says, which he had afore prepared unto glory. So that's between Jacob and Esau. Esau, the so-called white man, and Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel, his sons are the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians, which been scattered throughout the world in slavery. Now, Ishmael, which he has the name Hamas because he's a wild man. All right, his hand is against all other men, and all other men are against him. All right, but Esau, Edom, is the descendant of Cain. They're also that serpent that was in the Garden of Eden that deceived Eve. Back then, he had color, and then when he came as Cain, he had color, but then he lost his color because he killed his brother, and that's why today you have the so-called Caucasian. Those are the descendants of Esau, Edom. But now you have Israelites because the Israelites have been allowed to take the Edomite woman as a wife in our slavery. We have Israelites that even look like so-called Caucasians. So we test the spirit by the spirit, and the spirit will testify whether you're an Edomite or an Israelite. This word, which is sharper than any two-edged sword, cuts right down pretty much straight to the DNA, and we're able to identify who you are according to the spirit. Once again, Israelites been scattered throughout the world, and they look like all the nations in the world today. So how do we tell who you are and set you apart? It's according to the scripture. If your spirit testifies with the Holy Spirit, then you're an Israelite. But if not, you're an Edomite or another form of heathen. And even these 2/3, which are Israelites, but they reject it, they're pretty much unbelieving too, and they're going to die in their unfaithfulness, just like a heathen, with the heathen, in the destruction of America at the return of our power, Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, after they make that implantable microchip mandatory for buying and selling, which is an abomination when they make it mandatory that you have it in your body. But with that, I want to give all praise and glory to Yahweh and His Son Yahushai in the Holy Spirit, which brought us into remembrance, and double honors to our apostle elders, which rule great millstone well, and shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel. May you endure unto the end. Shalom wa abba.